Hi, everyone. I'm Dave.
And I'm Robert.
I'd like to welcome you to our Chipola fifth quarter podcast. We're so excited to share in this podcast with you. One, we get a film from our beautiful studios here at our main campus at Chipola College in Marianna, Florida. Also, we get to talk about some neat stuff. I mean, we just have this amazing ranking that just came out. Yeah,
Yep.
have you caught that?
I've kind of been off and on with the ranking system. July 4th weekend was kind of a, good celebration, and I kind of put, a little bit of football on the back burner, celebrating the independence of our country. But
Well, I mean, a ranking for our college.
really, fifth
Yeah,
best, was it fifth best in the
I think it
nation?
was fifth best. I
Fifth
mean,
best in the nation?
that's pretty good. I mean, the Bucks. I mean, they'll probably be ranked better than number five. But what were they ranked last year? They weren't number five last year,
They
were
were
they?
number five last
Yeah.
year.
So fifth in the country will take it, and that is
Yeah.
for quality and affordability. I think it really just says in a nutshell, you get what you pay for. So you get more than you pay for. So you get a really good deal. So that's the best thing to compete on, price and quality. And so we're so honored to have that ranking
Yeah,
throughout the
absolutely.
country. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and what a privilege it is to be able to call myself a student here at Chipola and to call yourself fifth best in the nation when you've got probably countless other colleges among the 50 states here in our nation. Fifth best.
And universities, yeah, a lot of
I
schools.
mean, fifth best in the nation is really something to hang your hat on. So kudos to Chipola.
Yeah, so we have a solid team, and we kind of keep moving the ball forward, pun intended, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were just talking about some neat technology topics, kind of off to the side, but really our focus with this podcast is about the game we love, football, and about applying these leadership business practices, things we talk about in the classroom, and kind of looking at how they apply to the game of football and just the overall business community about how you can work better as a team and how you can help others, you can inspire, really put the hard work in, really much that like Brady does, that example we talk about with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And one could even argue that Brady is the standard for success in the league. I want to open up our episode today and talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For the last 3 weeks to a month, we've talked a lot about the college level, but, let's get back into some of the pro edition. I want to ask the question, before the addition of Tom Brady, could you honestly say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a solid team?
They were a solid team. I mean, they were above 500. They'd make a playoff push a little bit. Their defense kept them in the game, right? And so they had that defense, and if they could score a little bit, they could win above 500. So they were a solid team. People would pay to go see them, but now they're elite.
Well, yeah, and one could argue that it's because of Brady, but I
It's the
would.
culture, right?
Right. I would say that since Brady has been at Tampa, he's really changed the culture there a lot. You got to figure Bruce Arians stepped foot as the head coach, took over a program that was basically in shambles. There was the Greg Schiano days. I think he had the length of a contract there at Tampa, couldn't make anything happen, and that was back when they had guys like Jeff Garcia at quarterback, taking snaps under center. And then you moved on to the Lovie Smith days. Lovie Smith, big for the Chicago Bears. He had spent several seasons with them. They gave him a shot in Tampa. His stint was short lived. And then Dirk Cutter, you had guys like him. And he had the privilege of coaching Jameis Winston. But it just those three coaches. I want to say they come and went within the last 10 years, and then in steps Bruce Arians, who had to scrap everything and start from the ground up.
If you look at their history, they did win with Chucky, right?
Yeah, I mean, they did win
They
with
won
Chucky.
that Super Bowl, that
Right,
one.
but let's be fair. Look at the team they had: Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks. I mean, you had a lot of great guys on the defensive side of the ball and offensive side of the ball. You had a great team, that 2001, 2002 Buccaneers team. But, it's like since then, they just kind of capped off. I think 2007 was the last time Tampa Bay got even a wild card appearance in the playoffs. But I would make the argument for this podcast and to our viewers that I would say Tampa Bay has always been a solid team, even before the addition of Tom Brady. It's just there were a few missing pieces on the board to complete the puzzle. Let's look at Mike Evans. He came into the league in 2014. He's been with them ever since as a rookie. He's been with them his entire career. He's never even so much as requested a trade or hinted that he wants to leave them and go to another organization. And so far, since his rookie season and on, he has finished every season, including his rookie season. The first year he was there, getting a look at some playing time, getting the ball thrown to him, whatever the case is. He finished with 1,000 yards or better, even his rookie
Every
season.
year, that's
Every
amazing.
single year.
Wow.
He has not missed a year where he has finished under 1,000. He's finished at least 1,000 or better. And you got to figure that's your wide receiver. Been with him for 7 years.
Who was throwing the ball back then? Winston?
Yeah, I want to say Winston, guys like Winston. Mike Glennon
Okay.
was taking some snaps. You know,
Okay.
Mike Glennon.
He was decent.
Yeah, Mike Glennon was decent. But Mike Glennon was just not much like Winston. He might not have been a solid guy. You got Chris Godwin, the Penn State guy. Been with him since 2017, except for finishing a little over 500 yards his rookie season. He finished 2 years with 800 yards or better. 2019 was his best one yet. He finished with over 1,300 receiving yards, and he's still with them today. Now, he's only been with them 3 or 4 years, but still, you're talking about two really good wide receivers in Godwin and Evans. Both of them are capable of producing 1,000-yard seasons or better. So, that's solid. And then you get down to Jameis Winston. I think there will always be an asterisk or a question mark next to Jameis Winston's name at Tampa. Was he a good quarterback? Let's look at the stats. Let's see if we can make the argument. His first 2 seasons, he finished with over 4,000 passing yards. His third season, he finished with just over 3,500 passing yards. His lowest came in his 4th season with the Bucs.
Well, if we can put a bookmark real quick on that,
Yeah,
how do
go
you
ahead.
think he did at FSU, would you say?
Oh, to be honest with you, I think he was real solid at FSU.
He won a title.
Yeah, won a title with them, and Jimbo Fisher and the coaching staff got him coached up well enough. He was making some good reads, and he was very disciplined as to where he threw the ball. He was good at reading coverages and stuff like that.
But what about all the smack that people talked about him back then, and it's continued a little bit on the field, off the field, right? He could win, but couldn't always win.
Yeah, well, you'll always be living in somebody else's
Okay.
shadow. Success comes at a price.
Okay.
Do I think Winston is willing to pay it? Absolutely. I think anybody would be willing to pay it. I think Winston's problem is...
So you're all in with him. I mean, he's won. He's proven himself.
Well, I'd say he's proven himself. I just think at the time when he was at Tampa Bay, I really think that he didn't have the right coaching staff that could coach him up.
Bruce wasn't there, yeah.
Yeah, Bruce wasn't there at the time, and Bruce come in, and his first year he gave Winston a shot. And it just didn't pan out. His 4th season, like I was saying, his 4th season was his worst season, and even then he finished just 100 yards shy of 3,000 passing yards.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. For that to be your lowest season, I mean, that's really something to hang your hat on. And his last year with the Bucs, he finished with over 5,000 passing yards. That's really something to hang your hat on when you have 5,000 passing yards in one single season. But here's the problem. His career total, he had 121 touchdowns. Okay, that's good for a career total since you've been with the Bucs. But the problem was he had 88 interceptions.
Ooh, yeah.
So his ratio was well over 500 on the interceptions, and you just can't have that. And Bruce Arians had made the comment, I want to say it was a post-game interview his first year there. They had turned the ball over 7 times. Don't even remember who they were playing, but he made the comment to the press. He said, "I'm going to be honest with you." He said, "It's hard to win a game when you turn the ball over 7 times."
Even one time.
Yeah, even one time, but 7 times. It's
impossible.
Yeah, and Tampa has been notorious for having some of the pieces in place, but the right pieces that need to be on the chessboard, so to speak, are just never there. Tampa's always had pretty decent skill guys at running back, wide receiver, even a decent defense, but it always seems to be the quarterback. And at one point, Tampa got the reputation of, Tampa's where quarterbacks go to die.
Well, Young was there early.
Yeah.
And Young, I mean, he kind of made a note for himself, right? And then he went off to the Niners. But I love Bruce's quote. So, they asked him about, Tom Brady mean everything after the Super Bowl win. He said, well, you had everything in place, and Tom kind of showed the guys how to win, what it's like to be a winner in the locker room. And that's key, right? He gave him the confidence, and just to see him there, first thing in the morning, staying late, what a great example for all of us.
Well, and I would dare say that Tom was probably your missing piece as far as the quarterback position. I think everything else was kind of set in place, set in stone.
But many of them had never seen what winning looks like.
Yeah, because the culture at Tampa was just terrible before Bruce Arians got there.
Did they win with Young back in the day? I don't think they even won.
I don't even think they did.
I remember in my mind him running around.
Yeah, I remember hearing a lot of the old heads, the older folks talking about their first few seasons, the 0-26 days, the John McKay days when they wore the orange creamsicle uniforms, stuff like that. And you got to figure it's probably been very painful for a lot of Bucs fans that were fans back in the 70s and 80s for them. But I just think after that Super Bowl win against the Raiders, I think they just kind of toppled off, and I think they reached this plateau, if you will. And the question became, can they ever get back to that once, season of domination. And I think Brady, again, I'm going to reiterate, I think Brady was that missing piece. However, I think before Brady, I think the pieces were there. And I'm
Most certainly they were there.
right, but I'm going to kind of shout out to the little Avengers reference. I would say Brady was probably that last stone that was needed.
And that's really an important thing to know, especially for a DC guy.
Oh, I am not just for purposes of this podcast. I am not a DC
But that
guy.
DC, we're going to get some markings with DC. Anyways, yeah.
But I would dare say that Brady was probably that missing piece at quarterback. They needed a guy they could rally around. Skilled guys can't do it all. The quarterback's got to take snaps and he's got to place the ball where it needs to go. And even Doug Martin is no longer with them. He went back to the Raiders. He's a California boy. Doug Martin had a couple of 1,000-yard seasons rushing with him. He was a very solid running back. Offensive line had its problems. But then just before Brady got there, you had guys like Alex Kappa, Tristan Wirfs. You started getting some tackles and guards in place, getting a real solid offensive line. And then on the defensive side of the ball, don't even get me started. Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Devin White. You got Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul. You got a pretty solid front. Vita Vea, those guys can stop the run. And then your secondary, I want to say Levante David was pretty much blanketing Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. I mean, he didn't have a whole lot of places to go. The secondary might could use a little work going into this season. I won't say that the secondary was very solid for Tampa. But, however, I don't see any other issues past that.
But they've drafted, right, and done some free agency, I think. And
that leads me to my next question. Can Kyle Trask carry the torch when Brady steps down? Because it's coming. Can't stay on top forever. So when Brady does decide to hang it up and stay close to the game that he loves, but just no longer put on a uniform, do you think Kyle Trask, the former Florida Heisman talk,
stand out?
Yeah. Do you think he can carry the torch?
He has the tools, right? I mean, many thought that he was Tebow-esque. He's a big guy, not that fast, but Tebow's faster than people thought. I mean, Tebow's like a 4.7 guy. Yeah. I mean, that's not as fast as maybe us, right? But that's pretty fast.
Yeah, again, I can run a 3-1 from my chair to the dinner table. But, I mean, and speaking of Tebow, that's something else just to kind of segue into. Meyer has explicitly stated, he said, I didn't guarantee Tim a slot.
Oh, that'd break my heart, man.
Yeah, well, but you got to be ready for anything. He made it clear. He said, look, I'm not promising you a slot on the roster, but I will promise you a chance to compete. And that's kind of like what Nick Saban does at Bama. Every one of those recruits he brings in, he said, I'm not going to promise you a starting position, but what I will promise you is a chance to compete. And that's what makes your team great, is when you can offer chances to compete and you don't just hand it over to them. Do I think Tebow's going to make the roster? Yes, but I think he'll just make the inside of the cut.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's huge. It's an enormous business move. They're going to sell that place out, just having him on the roster.
Yeah.
All the community events, the mentoring. I mean, it's unreal, unlimited, the potential there.
No, absolutely.
I've actually had a chance to see him talk in person, and very dynamic.
Yeah. But that leads me to my next question. Can this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, can they repeat a Super Bowl run? I mean, they signed all 22 starters back, but the question remains, can you repeat it? You got to remember, when they put all the pieces in place for this team last year, I remember this team mid-season to coming up on late season, they were 7-5, and what saved us was the wild card round against the Washington football team. It got past them, then we got past.
That was a tough game.
Yeah, then we got past New Orleans for the divisional, and then took out the Packers, at Lambeau Field, and then it was like it was all downhill from there, and then took it to the Chiefs. And the Chiefs had breezed through the season. I think they were like 14-2.
Yes,
was their season record. And I would dare say that the Chiefs. I don't know that they'll make it back next year, but I would look for the Buffalo Bills. I would look for them as an AFC contender again. I would look for them to make it back to the AFC Championship game.
Well, it was great with the Bucs because they did have off and on weeks. But when it really mattered, someone like Gronk, what did he get, 3 Super Bowl touchdowns in that game?
Yeah, I want to say.
I mean, he stepped up. And during the season, he was very average at best. He was injured and getting back in shape.
Right.
So that's what winners do, right? And that's what a team does when it's important, when it's on the line, they step up.
Right, and free agent signings is what really helped this team last year. And it's going to be excited to see what they do, going into 2021. I'm really excited. I know Tom Brady, even after that Super Bowl win, he was already training. I mean, there is no off day for Brady. But what I'm hoping is these young guys can come in here and learn the playbook and get in and have some good camaraderie with their teammates and find a way to win games. I'd love to see Tampa, not have to go to the wild card this season. I'd love to see them get a playoff berth and be guaranteed a playoff berth because of their record. Drew Brees stepped down from New Orleans, and I think New Orleans is starting to lose their thunder, the Saints. You know, you hate to say that about them, but Bree stepped down. You know, Taysom Hill's probably going to be their head guy, even though Winston's over there
And that's
now.
2 games right there.
Right. You know, so it's, and then, you know, the Packers, as far as the Packers go, Rodgers has made it clear he wants to be traded from Green Bay. But, I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out.
Imagine Rodgers in Tampa being groomed, right?
Ooh.
Is that even possible?
I mean, it does make you wonder. It does make you
That'd be
wonder.
amazing.
Yeah.
So you're already talking about the back-to-back buck attack, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm calling for it. I say this team repeats the Super Bowl
Okay.
run. And as far as the Bucks go, that's just the end of the story. If I'm surprised and we see something different, then okay. But I can't think of one other team in the NFC that would even come close to what the Bucks are doing. You know, the Rams had the #1 defense in the league last
They
year.
just changed quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, Jared Goff comes to Detroit, Matt Stafford heads to L.A.
I like Matt a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
the
Matt's
SEC guy, he's a winner.
Yeah, former Georgia alum.
Yeah.
You know, Matt's a real great guy. Jared Goff's even a good guy. But I wonder how that trade's going to work out for both teams. I don't look for LA to have the pieces in place to make a run, and I sure don't look for Detroit to have the pieces in place to make a run.
And you can't imagine the Packers, all the turmoil can bring it
No,
together.
I mean, you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers saying, "I want out of Green Bay."
Yeah.
Think about what that's doing for the morale of your team.
And Love hasn't been tested.
No. So there's just too many issues there for me to believe that Green Bay will make it back to the NFC Championship game. And to wrap up our podcast, man, the college football world, former Georgia wide receiver Demetrius Robertson transferred to rival Auburn.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a senior this
Is that why you
upcoming-
kind of came in here saying some War Eagle type of stuff?
Oh, no. You got me all wrong there, buddy. No, he trained.
DC War Eagle? I'm getting these wrong? Okay.
I am not a DC fan, just so we're clear on that. But no, he transfers to rival Auburn, and I think a lot of what it had to do with is, you got George Pickens, you got Kyrus Jackson at wide receiver, both of them 2 talented wide receivers.
So you think Auburn's doing a push just for the year?
I don't
Because he's a senior, right?
Yeah, this guy's a senior, so I for whatever reason he saw fit to put his chips in at Auburn. I don't know how that's going to play out because Auburn can't even fix their QB.
And who's the new coach there?
Brian Harsin.
So is he that dynamic where people are just coming to him? you think?
I don't know. I'd say this was probably despite the coaching staff at UGA. Again, you got Kyrus Jackson and you've got George Pickens, 2 very solid wide receivers. And I think Demetrius Robertson thought, I'm probably not going to get a whole lot of reps during the game. Okay. So let me go somewhere where they need me. Auburn's still trying to figure out whether Bo Nix is going to be their starter or they're going to give it to a true freshman or a transfer. They still can't figure out the quarterback issues. Auburn hasn't been, the talk of conversation as far as a playoff since I want to say, was it 2017, 2018 when they faced Georgia for the SEC championship and Georgia routed them. I don't think that's going to hurt the Dogs talent-wise. I think they still got enough talent. You've got JT Daniels taking snaps under center, the USC transfer. He looked pretty good in the red and black game. And then
running back.
Yeah, well, JT Daniels is quarterback.
Okay.
Zamir White, your running back,
Okay.
he's pretty solid. James Cook, quick story about James Cook. He's in on the roster as a running back, but they're talking about implementing him more at the slot for wide receiver. James Cook is Dalvin Cook's younger brother, the former Florida State running back.
Interesting.
So a little connection there.
First round draft pick.
Yeah, I look for the Dogs to have a chance to win the SEC. I still say they have a huge opportunity to win the SEC East, and I look for them to make it back to the SEC championship. Just hopefully they can make it past Bama.
Excellent. Yeah, it's going to be a great season.
Yeah, absolutely. So go Bucks and go Dogs.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.